Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host as always, Nathan P. Butler. This time we look at something a little bit odd, as we've been looking at lately, different oddball releases. And this time we're looking at two different items that basically both refer to the idea of mythology, the hero's journey and whatnot. Not necessarily entirely about Star Wars in one case, but these two pair together very well for those interested in the idea of the mythology behind Star Wars. Not its lore, not the continuity, or now continuities, but the idea of mythological archetypes and different storytelling tropes throughout history as applied to Star Wars and other stories. Now, the one most pertaining to Star Wars is this one. The Mythology of Star Wars with George Lucas and Bill Moyers. The DVD video down there says Films for the Humanities and Sciences. This was a PBS interview, basically, where Bill Moyers sat down for about an hour and interviewed George Lucas right after or around the time of Episode 1 being in production. It was released on home video in 2004, and I believe, looking at this thing, I believe it's a print-on-demand version coming straight through PBS. You have to order it through the PBS store back then. Nowadays, you can find some floating on eBay and whatnot. But it winds up being something, talking about Star Wars and mythology, but understand the context here. Because of the timing, this is going to be able to include all kinds of clips from the classic trilogy, as George Lucas makes his point, and from Episode 1. But that's it. Nothing from Episode 2, nothing from Episode 3, nothing from the Clone Wars, and this also means that when Lucas talks about things like the nature of the Force, it's his thoughts as of this time, not anything that we're getting revealed, for instance, in the god-awful Mortis trilogy, for instance, that didn't follow its own rules for Part 3 in the Clone Wars. So, think of it kind of as a snapshot of Lucas talking about the mythology, the philosophy and whatnot behind the Star Wars saga as of the time. Again, a snapshot, not his treatise on the subject. But a very interesting conversation to watch between these two, because Moyers is good at asking questions that evoke detailed answers here. On the back, just a rundown of what it is. Mythology of Star Wars with George Lucas and Bill Moyers. Runs down what it is. This program is sold for home use only, blah, 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 blah. Just all the, copyright and legal information down there at the bottom. You pop this sucker open. There's your disc. Films Media Group, Films for the Humanities and Sciences, Cambridge Educational, Meridian Education, Shopware, DVD Video, and The Mythology of Star Wars. Little thing there, it says home. It's the home video version as opposed to being sold, to schools and whatnot. Very bare bones, as you would expect from a PBS release. They're not really all that flashy most of the time. But a cool little thing to check out. If you haven't seen this before, it's an interesting discussion, and it's definitely worth hunting down. You can usually find it pretty cheap at this point because it's not like this is the most sought-after Star Wars video out there. And it is on DVD, so it'll play in modern players, or this era's players, however you want to put that. Now, if you're interested in that and you want to delve much deeper, and you're not really worried about something being really, really dry, very interesting, but ungodly dry. Something you definitely don't want to watch in one sitting because you'll probably find yourself falling asleep repeatedly or perhaps going into a coma, to be honest. There is another one focusing on this also with an interview by Bill Moyers. The awesome, yet, again, I can't stress this enough, dry, we're talking Tatooine dry. I hate sand. It gets everywhere, and it's as dry as this interview. But it's really deep and really interesting. That is Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth with Bill Moyers, with a bonus interview with George Lucas on mythology. Just heads up to you, the bonus interview they're talking about is a clip from this, which again gives you a sense of time because this was released in 2004, recorded back around the time Phantom Menace was coming out in theaters. This one was released in 2001 and yet has a clip of that one. Now, whereas this one has no bonus features, this one actually does. It's got an art gallery, biographies, bibliographies, web links, believe it or not, an About This DVD section, which you don't see very often, and selections from Sukhavati, Place of Bliss. Now, most of these bonus features are all text stuff, except for that clip with Lucas, but the meat here, the very dry meat, is the rather juicy, yet dry interview between Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell, the guy whose work on mythology George Lucas refers to so often when talking about the mythology behind Star Wars and the idea of collective archetypes throughout history. The guy that wrote the book, literally, on the subject, giving his thoughts in interview form here. Now, front side again, looks like this. There's a couple different pressings of this. It looks similar each time, though not exactly the same. This is the first pressing of it, I believe. Got your guys there on the back, Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell. Bonus features listed there. The back tells you a little bit about it. An exhilarating journey. Not sure exhilarating is the right word. An interesting journey into the mind and spirit of a remarkable man, a legendary teacher, and a masterful storyteller, conducted by TV journalist Bill Moyers in the acclaimed PBS series. And what you've got here are interviews actually from 1988 that are all pulled together on here, so the video quality is going to be, full screen, kind of grainy video here. But spread across 2 discs, you have 6 episodes. So you got this one here with the episodes The Hero's Adventure, The Message of the Myth, and The First Storytellers. And then you've got the second disc there. It's got Sacrifice and Bliss, Love and the Goddess, and Masks of Eternity. Deep topics, whereas this one runs about an hour, this one runs about 6, each one being about an hour. Think of this as equivalent to like a mini-series or a season set of a short TV show. They're both fairly readily available. You can find them pretty often on places like eBay. If not, just search every once in a while. You'll eventually run across them. It's not like they don't show up often. It's just there may not be very many up at a given time. But they're out there. Usually not all that expensive if you want to check them out. And they are, again, really, really interesting. It's just that they are just sit-down interviews for the most part. This is not something that's really flashy. We're not talking History Channel production values. We're talking PBS interview show production values. If you're interested in the topic, you'll love it. If you don't have that deep interest, you'll probably want to skip it. At least this one, if not this one. Because let's face it, dry is not for everybody. But me, I found it really interesting. I was able to get through it. Nerd! I don't know what the hell that was. Anyway, with that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.